Yes.
We are live. Woohoo! It's a first for me. I don't know about you, Robert. You've probably done this many times before. Anyone, if you are joining us here on Facebook Live right now, this is an gathering in person and on Zoom and on Facebook, wherever you are. Welcome. We have a hugely exciting program for you. And I wanted to, first of all, thank Robert Pitsley from our Southeastern node in 350 Massachusetts, who has pulled this all together in record time in the last few days, and who is live at the Boston Common near the State House. I don't know if Robert, can you hear me? No. We see the beautiful sky there. So why are we here? As you probably hopefully know, the Massachusetts legislature has put a historic climate bill before the governor less than a week ago at the very end of the session. And it is now up to Governor Charlie Baker to sign this bill before Thursday, which is the deadline. And we are here to basically urge the governor to sign the bill and also to explain to everyone on this live stream why it is absolutely critical that this bill become law. It includes a lot of pieces that have not been made into bills before, and we are, I can quote here our local radio station, WBUR, at the heart of the bill is the state's greenhouse gas emission reduction target for 2050, and the legislation trains the attention on the work of getting there. So this is really critical legislation. Sorry, I wanted to quote a different piece. Massachusetts would adopt some of the most aggressive greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets in the country, dial up thousands of more megawatts of cleaner offshore wind power, encourage natural gas utilities to explore other services they could provide in the future, and put an explicit emphasis on helping the most overburdened communities cope with the effects of climate change under a compromise climate policy bill that was shipped by the lawmakers to the governor's desk last Monday. And that is why we're here. And we have a lot of people who can speak much more intelligently about this bill than I can. We wanted to bring you some live action from the Boston Common of people who are there in person to make the point. And we also have several speakers here with us on Zoom from a number of organizations that have really been the main movers behind this bill. It would not have happened. In fact, the legislators acknowledged that at the top of the bill, that the climate activists who pushed hard for 2 years and more to make this happen are, they thanked us for this. And we have Olivia Chatfield here from Sunrise Boston. We have representatives from the North American Indian Center of Boston. I'm not sure they're here with us yet, but they will be eventually. And we have with us Mela Bush-Miles from the Alternatives for Community and Environment. And we also have with us Maria Belen Power and Andrea, who is here in Yameke, from the, sorry, I'm, I'm going back and forth between my different, from GreenRoots, who have a very big stake in this because of the environmental justice piece that is really critical in this bill. So we're waiting for the group to gather at the Common. We're expecting some more people to join them live. And as soon as they're ready, we will have them speak to us directly from the Common. And we also have a greeting that is videotaped that we're going to show. And I wonder if we should start with that at this point. Does that make sense? I see someone is with Robert, but you're on mute. So Sam, it might make sense to play the video now while the rest of the people are gathering on the Common. Oops, we're having some technical difficulties here, but as soon as we figure out how to do this, we're going to play you the video. Oops, we're having some tech. It's not working, huh? Here we go. Nope.
As is our practice at the North American Indian Center of Boston, we want to take the time to recognize the land that we're standing on, the land that holds us, the land that sustains us. So what we want to do first is, if you're comfortable and you're able, I want you to stand with me, and I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to project yourself back into time. Project yourself back 400 years and think about the space where you are now. Where there is land, perhaps there was water. And where there is now water, perhaps there was once land. And I want you to stay in that time, and I want you to envision all of the people that were here, who were born here, who lived here, who loved here, who raised families, and who died here. I want to take us forward beyond this time where we are now into another 400 years, into the time of our descendants. And I want us to reflect on all of the work that we're doing here today, all of the seeds that we're planting, and all of the fruit that will bear in this time. What type of world are we leaving for our descendants? How has that land changed in that time? Now I want to bring us back into our bodies. And I want us to open our eyes and look around and see that this is the traditional indigenous territory of the Massachusetts Nation, who continue to this day in part through their lineal descendants, the Massachusetts tribe of Ponkapog. And in acknowledging the land, in recognizing our host tribes, we are making certain agreements with our hosts as good guests. And one such agreement is to support every effort by the tribe to rematriate the land and natural resources back to the original peoples. I want to take the opportunity to thank 350 Massachusetts and Sunrise for inviting North American Indian Center of Boston today's standout. I hope that we have a lot of energy, a lot of good feelings, a lot of good words that are being spoken out in front of the State House. And of course, we're here primarily because of the climate change bill, which has been laid before Governor Charlie Baker and is awaiting his signature. And in this bill, I wanted to actually highlight three things that were most important to North American Indian Center of Boston. This next generation climate change legislation will update the state's Global Warming Solutions Act and its target for reducing carbon pollution and other heat-trapping gases to net zero by 2050 or earlier. Now, this is something that Governor Baker has already committed to, and he updated the 2050 target to net zero just last year. But this legislation will now make it part of state law as opposed to executive policy. So we want to take it that step further. Furthermore, secondly, the bill includes extra money for the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, which is a public economic development agency. Now, they're supposed to spend $12 million more per year on clean energy workforce development for minority-owned and women-owned small businesses, environmental justice communities, and fossil fuel workers. What this means for Black, Indigenous people of color is that there is more investment in the communities that are most impacted by climate change, by the need for environmental justice. And to that effect, thirdly, the bill defines environmental justice communities based on race, income, and language proficiency criteria. Now, when we look at where all of our environmental justice communities are, when we look at who our environmental justice communities are, not only are we talking about the Black and Indigenous people of color, Native Americans, let's say, but we're talking about immigrants as well. Indigenous peoples who have come to this land in search of a better life, in search of looking to get away from land disputes and looking to get away from violence against women. And so when they are coming to this land in our way as residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we need to be good hosts as well. We need to make sure that all of our communities who are most impacted have a meaningful role in decision making about new developments, energy infrastructure, and other projects near neighborhoods, regardless of race, regardless of language proficiency. So we also need to make sure that there's a critically equitable distribution of energy and environmental benefits and environmental burden for everyone. We need to, this bill doesn't necessarily go far enough. There is, a consideration for background pollution, but we need to make sure that environmental justice communities can attend these public hearings and advocate for themselves and have their voices centered. Now, also, North American Indian Center of Boston wants to take this opportunity to address the Seal and Motto Bill, which is also at the governor's desk. Now, this is a bill that has been within the state legislature for over 35 years, and mostly in part due to the advocacy of Slow Turtle, John Peters, former executive director of the Mass Commission on Indian Affairs, and the tireless championing of former state representative Byron Rushing. The Massachusetts Indigenous Legislative Agenda, which includes North American Indian Center of Boston, United American Indians of New England, Mass Peace Action, ChangeTheMassFlag.com, and the Massachusetts Native Mascot Coalition, all together, including, I believe, Network for Good. We are hoping to have that bill signed. But why? The current state seal has a composite figure of a native. They took the head of Thomas Littleshell, a Chippewa chief from Montana. They took the bones from a Massachusetts person who was excavated in an archaeological dig in Winthrop. And they took the sash of Poe Metacommet, King Philip, who, after King Philip's War, which was started over 345 years ago, was decapitated. Over this war of resistance, he was decapitated, and his head was placed on a pike and it rested there for 25 years. And above this native figure, we have the disembodied arm of a settler colonial brandishing the sword of Miles Standish. So we have a lot of settler colonial violence that is encoded within our current flag. And when we look at what is happening in our world today, the challenges that are coming from other factions within our society. We're talking about the insurrection that happened at the United States Capitol. Looking at the people who were invading the Capitol building, they were carrying all of these antiquated symbols, the Confederate flag, the flag of the 13 colonies, things that are symbols of a bygone time. And what we want when we're looking for that sustainable future, when we're looking for the benefits of environmental justice within our communities, we want a symbol for the whole Commonwealth to rally around. We want to have that opportunity to reflect on the past 400 years and the need for good government-to-government relationships between the Commonwealth and the indigenous nations who are here. And so I just want to bring it back to the visioning that we were doing, thinking about the past 400 years, but also thinking about 400 years into the future, when all of the work that we are doing today takes root and bears fruit and leaves those benefits for our descendants. What is the world that we are leaving for them? Thank you. My name is Jean-Luc Perit, member of the Tunica Biloxi Tribe, Louisiana, and president of the board of directors at the North American Indian Center of Boston. Tikach.
Awesome. Thank you so much to Jean-Luc.
Yeah.
And we're going live to the comments. So, Robert?
Yes.
You're live.
Hi there. We're just getting set up on the comments here. Welcome, everyone. We will start with our first speaker in just a moment.
Okay. Do you need a minute?
If you have something, or I think we'll be ready in just a moment.
Okay. Well, I forgot actually to introduce myself. I'm Sabine von Mehring. I'm one of the members of the 350 Massachusetts statewide steering team, a member of the Metro West node. And happy to help make today's event happen. While we're waiting, I just wanted to highlight my colleague John King helped kind of pull out some of the important pieces that Jean-Luc was mentioning. That this is, we have
And then, Stephen, I believe the way we have it.
we have a legally required executive plan that the governor put out a week ago, also called a roadmap. But that's not the same. That's just sort of goals, right? As opposed to the actual law. All right, I see Steve Miller. Steve Miller, are you ready? Can we? Yes. All right. Steve is another 350 Mass member. Go ahead. Why are we here?
We are standing in front of the State House for one really important reason, which is our survival. For the last 5-10 years, concerned citizens have been pushing the legislature to deal with the climate crisis with the speed and depth that it requires. And finally, and it is finally, the legislature has actually come through with a good bill. It's not all we need, but it's so much more than we had. And that's important as a stepping stone to the future. But now Governor Baker is sitting on the bill, trying to weigh its cost for the taxpayers and for business with his own political survival and ability to run for office again. So we are pushing him to say the most important thing here is neither of those issues. It's the health of our planet, of our lives, of our cities, of our economy, our children and our grandchildren. The bill before him has a lot of specifics that are really good. Every 5 years, we have to do an adjustment, an evaluation of what's been accomplished so far and plan to move forward. It sets a limit saying we need net zero emissions. Now, in fact, I think we need to go past that and start drawing emissions down. We need a net negative, but I'll take net zero as a starting point. We need to make sure, as the bill does, that the DPU and other state agencies take climate protection as part of their mandate and impose it and include it in every regulation that they pass and pass on. We need to start changing some of our building codes. And the bill does this with a stretch code. And the list goes on, small but really important steps. So we're here to call on Governor Baker to stop waiting, to sign the bill, to endorse the bill. It's faster than he wants. It's more inclusive than he wants. But in fact, from the perspective of our planet's health, those are good things. In fact, it's not fast enough. It's not inclusive enough. We need Governor Baker to step up to the traditions of Massachusetts to be a national leader. We need him, just as he's repudiated President Trump's semi-fascist activities in Washington, become a champion of democracy and sustainability here at home. That's why we're here. That's why this whole event is happening. And we can promise Governor Baker, if he passes it and signs it, we will applaud. We'll push him some more, but we'll applaud in the meantime. And we can also promise that if he vetoes it, either directly or by letting it sit in his desk and get a pocket veto, there'll be a price for him to pay too. Good enough. Back to you, Sabina.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for being out there. It's good to see you. 350 Mass has a legislative manager, and I welcome now Cabell Eames. Oops, Cabell, you're mute.
Can you hear me? Everything?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, it's really great to see everybody on the comments, and I'm actually going to be joining you soon after I speak with you all here. It is a somewhat of a somber day for me, knowing what's going on in Washington. I'm sure it is for many of you. We have a lot of really important people that we work with that are our champions that have been traumatized. So I just want to take a minute to say that we're with you, and we really welcome a federal partnership going forward, because it's been really hard on all of us to be able to have climate legislation taken seriously, with all of the focus being in Washington. And so I really just want to take just a second just to say thank you for all of your hard work, particularly our Senator Ed Markey and our legislators in the State House too. I know that it's probably a little scary for you right now, even, you know, going to work. You guys are champions for us, and we recognize that, and we desperately need it, and we appreciate it, because this bill, S2995, enact a next gen roadmap for Massachusetts of climate policy, is really good. It's not perfect, but it's really good. And we really need it, and we need a moment of just positivity from legislative bodies and of government, because you know, the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Climate Change Panel, that was formed back in 1988 because Margaret Thatcher was in government at the time, and she actually called for climate action. So back in 1988, when I was in high school, I remember this being all over the news. And I remember like even thinking about like how my hairspray was kind of debilitating the ozone layer. And, you know, just so this has been something that has been about and has been known for a very long time. And so the solutions that you have before you were called upon decades ago, and they are ready to be in use. And I want to particularly point out a point of this bill, which I think is extraordinary, particularly for Massachusetts, and that is wind power. We are currently, where we stand in the jet stream, we are the Saudi Arabia of wind. We could be not only producing enough wind with solar to electrify the entire state, we could have a surplus with that wind. We could actually sell it to other states. And that's really important because we are, as we all know with COVID, we're in a situation here where you know, we need funding, people need, and this is not some tax scheme on low folks, right? Middle class for that matter.
I'm
This
on
money here that we could be using to help our citizens. And so what it has increased is we were currently at 3,200 was allowed. This brings us up to 5,600 for wind power, which is really, really substantial. And so that is just the thing that I want to highlight here, which is remarkable because it could give us a surplus in the state, which is what we really, really need to help folks time and to help our government. So we're here today, as you've all heard, and we're going to be hearing from some really fantastic speakers, including my environmental justice colleagues, which I cannot wait for you to hear from them directly, to say that we really need Baker to sign this bill. He has until January 14th to do so. And we really need it. We need some positive information coming out of our government, but we also need some hope because we are all in a place right now of trauma, and our governor could do the right thing and sign the bill. So I'm going to pass it on to some of our wonderful speakers, but I thank you all for joining us here today, and let's get this done.
Woohoo! Thank you, Cabell. And now we're going live to Olivia, who is at the State House. Olivia, you're on. Oops. No, we lost her.
Nope, I'm here. All right, can you hear me, Sabina?
Yes.
Sabina, can you hear me?
floor is
Yay!
yours.
We love it. Yay for flexibility. All right, hello. My name is Olivia Chatfield. I'm a climate activist and an elementary school teacher. And I'm out here today and speaking to you, Governor Baker, because it is impossible to learn algebra when your house is on fire. What does that mean? It means that our brains are wired to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe, and to address any threats, real or imagined, that we might be facing. I want you to take a second and think about a time when you were really scared, when you felt unsafe. Maybe it was because you were in a fight with someone you really cared about, or because you were facing a physical threat, or because you were worried about something that might happen in the future. How did that feel? Could you focus? Could you learn? Could you get anything done? Probably not. I know for me and for you and for probably most of us, 2020 and the first 65,000 days of 2021 has felt a lot like our houses are on fire. The threat of, and I know that it has for my students as well. They're 9 and 10 years old and fabulously brilliant and brave, and have been asked to do things that no kid should have to do. How can they be expected to focus and learn and do their assignments and learn their multiplication facts when it has suddenly become unsafe for them to go to school, unsafe for them to leave the house? I have worked with children for whom it is unsafe to drink the water that comes out of their faucets, unsafe for them to, go outside because they're worried there might be a hurricane or because floodwaters might come up to their house. When I lived in Mexico City, I taught students who were not allowed to go outside sometimes because the very air was unsafe for them to breathe. Children in Massachusetts are suffering. Well, we are lucky, and it is only luck that has prevented this, that their literal houses are not on fire. The threats of climate change, of police violence, of white supremacy are real, and they're real in a way that is only going to get worse unless we take action. Even something simple as a snow day, their experiences of winter are drastically different than mine were growing up only 5 miles away from the homes of students where I currently teach. Governor Baker, I know it probably feels like your house is on fire right now, and that there are challenges facing our country that you cannot fix. But this climate bill and taking meaningful action on climate change is something that you can. As educators, we try to give our students the tools to grow up and change the world. And I have no doubt that they will be able to do that. But they cannot learn, and they cannot grow, and they cannot do everything that they want to and deserve to do if their house is on fire. Governor, you have every ability to sign this bill and put Massachusetts on a path to put out the fire. Please do it. Do it for the students who are going to be our Commonwealth's future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olivia and Sunrise, for all the incredible work you've been doing all year long. It's really thanks to you that Ed Markey won his primary and is still our senator today. And that's a real blessing because we need him as a climate champion in Congress. So I am trying to see, because we had a plan, I'm trying to see if our next speakers are on the Common, because they are not here in the Zoom, but I am not seeing them. Okay, they're looking for them. We're gonna go to Mela Miles from ACE. Are you here with us, Mela?
I am here.
All right. So Sam, you may have to help her get her video started again. Yay, here you are. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. I am Mela Miles, and I am the Director of Transit-Oriented Development. And also I direct the Tea Writers Union at ACE, Alternatives for Community and Environment, over 25-year-old, 26, 27-year-old organization that has been fighting for climate and environmental justice. And today I am speaking because I am a lifelong Boston resident. I'm the mother of 3 children, all of whom, 3 adult children who all have asthma on some level. one severe and some moderate levels of asthma. I also have 3 grandchildren, and I'm concerned about the governor's thought that we could roll back, cut the amount, reduce the amount of levels of goals for reduction of particulate matter. Through the year of 2020, we saw an unprecedented situation happen with COVID-19. And we found out that it can become airborne. And one of the ways of transporting that pathogen is on particulate matter. And we are going to see more and more issues around viruses and transmission and everything. And we need to be made safe. We need those 3 grandchildren and 1 great-granddaughter who's 3 years old to be safe. It is their future that we are working to address. A 3-year-old can't vote. My 9-year-old grandson can't vote, and my 17-year-old grandson cannot vote. So we as adults are the ones who are out here fighting for their future. In 30 years, or even 25 years, how old will Governor Baker be? You know, this is not for him that he's signing these bills, that he's making these decisions. It is for our children, for our future, for our, for the planet that we're living on, that they have to inherit from us, the adults who are making the decisions right now. We cannot look at the bottom line or the corporate donors or people that, companies that want to not have to reach goals that are set, that want to look at money more and profit more than the people and the planet that it's going to affect. I really want to encourage Governor Baker to reconsider any ideas that he might be having to not move this bill forward or to alter it in any way, because our children cannot afford for us to make a decision that's going to decimate the planet, that's going to continue to increase the levels of particulate matter. And now we find out about ultrafine particles, which are also impacting our communities. The folks who are also being most impacted are the same ones who are being impacted by COVID-19. We're seeing folks, in our communities, Roxbury, Mattapan, EJ communities, they have higher rates of COVID-19, and they're the ones who are suffering more and losing their life because of this. Over the holidays, 2 people that I know passed away because of this virus. And I'm not trying to focus on the virus, but I'm trying to focus on the environment and the climate and why we need to make better decisions today, right now. And we're out here on a Sunday afternoon, and where I am is quite warm, and it's very lush and tropical. That's why I'm not showing it to you. But even here, we're seeing things that are happening with sea level rise on our in our southern states that are happening. It's very dangerous. The climate is not getting better. It is not junk science. Our students went to school and studied this, and they've done so much to be the change agents for what's going to happen in the future. We need to listen to the next generation. Last year, we saw sunrise movement in over the past year and a half. Kids ditching school, because they're so worried about their future, and they're trying to get the attention of we, the adults. So it's my goal is to say, Governor Baker, you need to sign this bill and do everything within your power to make the future for us, for our children, and our children, our grandchildren, our children's children, our great-grandchildren, a better future, because what we do right now, it has so much impact on what is coming down the pike, and we don't even know what's going to happen next. We see unrest and discord going on in the government, and but we're here, we have Massachusetts governor, and we're asking you, Governor Baker, we're speaking directly to you. please sign this bill, put it into law, and work with us for all of the other bills and actions that we're taking to address this dire situation that we have here with the climate crisis that we find ourselves in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mila. That was so critical to hear your voice and hear the scientific background to all of this that is not just a matter of physics, but also of social science when it comes to these inequities. So thank you very much. We have more speakers. I want to just check whether our live crew wants to pipe in here. Anything happening on the common that we shouldn't be missing? Otherwise, we will continue with speakers.
Right now, we are still awaiting Reggie and Raquel from NACOB. And if we do not hear from them, then we're going to close out after we hear from GreenRoots community, GreenRoots Chelsea. And we encourage GreenRoots Chelsea to speak as long as they would like to. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we have Maria Belén Power and Andrea Nyamekaya with us, and they are, I think we're going to start with Maria. And here she is. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you well.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me and having us here. I just want to point out that Andrea is actually from Neighbor to Neighbor, and between Neighbor to Neighbor and GreenRoots, we've been convening the EJ table for over 2 years. So thank you so much for having me. Like I said, my name is Maria Belén. I am originally from Nicaragua. I'm a Chelsea resident, and I'm a mother of 2 beautiful daughters. And I'm also the Associate Executive Director of GreenRoots. So for decades, we've been fighting archaic infrastructure and pollution and environmental injustice in our communities of Chelsea and East Boston. Actually, we're currently fighting a dangerous substation in East Boston that's projected to go next to 8 million gallons of jet fuel on a flood zone and adjacent to a heavily utilized playground. It's also in a densely populated neighborhood of low-income residents, immigrants, and people of color. Now, for over 2 years, together with Neighbor to Neighbor, my ally, friend, and colleague, Andrea, and I at GreenRoots, we've been convening the EJ Legislative Table of Massachusetts. And I actually want to name all of our partners because it highlights the broad movement of allies and partners from every corner of the Commonwealth who have been working together for over 2 years on this particular legislative session. So in addition to GreenRoots and Neighbor to Neighbor, we have our friends at Alternatives for Community and Environment, like Mela mentioned, A Better Future Project, Coalition for Social Justice, Clean Water Action, Community Action Works, Conservation Law Foundation, Environmental League of Massachusetts, Green Energy Consumers Alliance, Groundworks Lawrence, Healthcare Without Harm, Lawyers for Civil Rights, Massachusetts Climate Action Network, the North American Indian Center of Boston, as it was highlighted earlier today, and the Unitarian Universalist Massachusetts Action. So as you can see, it's a broad movement of allies and friends from every corner of the Commonwealth. And we're celebrating this historic moment for the environmental justice movement as communities most impacted by generations of environmental racism and on the front lines of the climate crisis. We are thrilled that Massachusetts can finally enact legislation to protect the most vulnerable communities. But we're one step away from this happening. For far too long, Black, brown, immigrant, and low-income communities have been sacrifice zones, carrying a disproportionate number of environmental hazards, fossil fuel, polluting facilities, and public health burdens. COVID-19 exposed many of these inequities and life and death consequences environmental injustice has on the most vulnerable communities. This legislation is a major and critical first step for our Commonwealth to reverse generations of harm and environmental racism. This is a historical moment. This kind of momentum that we have today will be incredibly hard to parallel next session or in future legislative sessions. We are at an inflection point, and we urge Governor Baker to take action on climate, on the environment, and on environmental justice. Thank you so much for having me, and I'll hand it over to my friend Andrea from Neighbor to Neighbor.
Thank you so much, Maria. Andrea, go ahead.
Thanks, Maria Belen. I'll be pretty short, as Maria Belen, Mela, and Jean-Luc have really highlighted what environmental justice will do. So I'm Andrea Namicha. I am originally from Ghana and have been pushing environmental justice for many years through the fossil fuel divestment campaign, and now in my position as the co-executive director of Neighbor to Neighbor. So Neighbor to Neighbor is a grassroots multi-issue organization really working to advance economic, environmental, and racial justice in Massachusetts and in our 4 chapters of Lynn, Springfield, Worcester, and Holyoke. And so, as Jean-Luc and Maria Belen and others have said, the environmental justice bill will really set that criteria and really enforce and put into place environmental justice communities in Massachusetts, and really to advance the participation of our environmental justice communities in Massachusetts when it comes to environmental siting and what's happening in our own backyards. And so, you know, it's been a long 20 years of pushing for environmental justice protections here in the Commonwealth. And right now we are close. It is in the bill. It's the furthest it's ever been over the past 2 decades. And we now have this ability to really enact environmental justice protections for our most vulnerable communities in the Commonwealth, which are usually disproportionately the BIPOC communities, Black, Brown, Indigenous, people of color, immigrants, and working class communities here in the Commonwealth. And so we are, you know, this is just one step in ameliorating the public health and environmental harms that have plagued our communities over decades and centuries. And we are really calling on Governor Baker to sign the bill to really put environmental justice for the first time into statute, so that we can actually protect our environmental justice communities here in the Commonwealth and really work to invest in those same communities as we're thinking through how we're going to transition from fossil fuels and move to net zero. These communities are the same ones that are getting hit hard by COVID, the same ones that are the asthma capitals of the nation. And so it's really imperative that we put environmental justice into law and work to ameliorate those environmental and public health harms that have plagued our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for that powerful statement, and to everyone who was here on the Zoom. Thank you for helping us make a strong case for the governor to sign on to this bill. It's really a no-brainer for all of us, and I hope everyone who's listening on Facebook or who sees this recording eventually does just one thing. Just pick up your phone, take your computer, write an email, tell the governor how critical this is for our children, for our grandchildren. And you know, this is, Massachusetts must take the lead on this. Others will follow. We have very little time left. And I'm going to turn now to Robert, who is live again at the State House. Robert.
Hey, everybody. So what Mela mentioned from ACE was so good that we just wanted to hear one more time. We wanted to hear her touch on communities and transportation. And we're wondering from the Commons, if you could just give us a little bit more information while we have you for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then we're going to close out here at the Commons and take some pictures.
All right, Mela, you're back on.
So my colleagues did mention some of the great work that we've been doing around justice, which ties in as it relates to particular matter and the issues that are being confronted by our vulnerable communities and transit-dependent folk who are striving so hard to get to where they need to go, and utilizing and not feeling very safe on the public transit. Right now, we are looking at we have a bill to move forward zero emission vehicles. And we're working really hard to try and get electric trains, electric buses, and to encourage our elected officials and the governor to move forward with the legislation around electric vehicles, whether it's a train, a bus, and also the infrastructure so that we can have more electric cars. You know, the problem confronting the environmental justice communities is that we carry more of the burden of the pollution that's emitted by even a diesel hybrid bus, for example. They're calling them enhanced electric. But if any diesel particulate that is left to into the community, you can see that that is going to cause harm to those who are dependent upon public transportation. So we need to move forward with all aspects of changing how we travel, the buildings that are being built as it relates to zero emission buildings, you know, because the main issues that are, the main polluters are buildings and vehicles. And so ACE has been working for years to try, and I work on transit-oriented development, but, you know, we're looking at, you know, trying to move the Commonwealth to put in some standards even around what types of buildings are being built and what is being mandated even within the city of Boston, so that folks will be able to have, even in affordable housing, they will be raising the standards for building emissions and looking at zero emission buildings. So those are some of the things that we're working on right now as development progresses within the Commonwealth, really trying to get better standards around building emissions. You know, that would be things like adding more solar power, people's solar power, getting more solar power, more clean energy sources into our community and those sort of things. So we continue to do this work. Folks to get involved, and I just thank who came out and got involved in this, trying to get this historic legislation passed. And we just want to thank everybody for that. But don't give up. More folk need to get involved with these movements, and we'll be seeing you around trying to get this going and moving forward. And thank you so much.
Thank you again. Thank you for all that you're doing and have been doing now for decades to make change, and you know, and congratulations actually also to you, to all of you, because this bill that came out really is a testament to the work that you all have been doing for such a long time, and you know, you should take all the credit. Robert, I see there's still some action on the common.
Absolutely. There's a lot of action. And what we're going to do for the next half hour or hour is wait around, and we're going to take some pictures. We're going to hear from everyone here and their thoughts after what we've learned today. We're going to document all of that. And when we're going to, over the next couple of hours, we're going to send everything we've got. From there, we want everyone to take that material, and it will be provided through 350 Mass and the Sunrise. And we want you to take that material out, and we're going to send a ton of it. And we want you to tag Governor Baker over the next 4 days. We want to really let him know that we're watching him this week. He is being watched. And I would just like to close us out by saying that we are continuing this year, and we want to hear from Jim Malloy over here at 350 Massachusetts. What do you have to say? Governor Baker, sign the bill. Yeah, that's a good idea. What about mothers up front?
Governor Baker, sign the bill.
350 Massachusetts, Paul Short.
Governor Baker, sign the bill.
Yeah, everybody. What do you say?
Governor Baker, sign the bill.
See you soon. See you next.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you again to Robert, who has been the engine behind this wonderful event. And also I want to give a special shout out to Sam Payne, our digital organizer and communication specialist at 350 Mass, who has somehow magically made this happen over 24 hours and done all the tech behind the scenes to make it work. Thank you so much, Sam. And thanks again to our wonderful speakers who really inspire me to keep working on this. As Steve Miller correctly said, this is just a first step. We are moving forward with this bill and the governor needs to get on board. It is not a big difference between his roadmap and the roadmap bill. There's a 5% difference by 2030. That is not a difference that allows this to die. It's just too little to make, to not move forward. So thank you all. And I think we are going to end here.